Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderplug, joined once again, almost always, by my good friend Cody Welton, who is back from his sickness-induced sabbatical. And what a time for us to be getting back together to discuss sporting Kansas City and the news surrounding the club. So this week on the podcast, out of seemingly nowhere, Pulido completed his oft-rumored but rarely taken seriously return to Chivas de Guadalajara, the club from which Sporting Kansas City acquired him back in 2020, and seemingly couldn't go a single offseason without being linked back to. We considered this to be a contract that Sporting KC would not be able to reasonably get out of, and had resigned ourselves to the fact that his presence would be a significant portion of the rebuild planning Mike Burns and Peter Vermes were attempting to architect. How little did we know? Transferring Pulido to Guadalajara is the most recent in a variety of offseason moves that have created tons of flexibility in how the Sporting Kansas City front office wants to approach rebuilding the roster. The problem is, rebuilds require acquiring players as well to fill those roster slots. And as of the recording of this podcast, the only players that have come into the team are literally in high school. This has led to some consternation amongst the fan base as to what to expect from a team currently who has 19 rostered players, most of which are of the role-playing variety. We'll get into whether it's time to panic and what to reasonably expect from the team this season. Finally, we will discuss the departure of a staple on the Sporting Kansas City coaching staff, the holiday season ritual of Adidas kit leaks and Sporting Kansas City's in particular, as well as a quick update of the goings-on with the Kansas City current offseason. But first, we have to start with the Pulido news, as it has been by far the biggest story of Sporting Kansas City's offseason so far. We seemingly went from a Chivas beat reporter from TUDN posting phone videos outside the Chivas facilities reporting that a move was possible, to all of a sudden an official announcement of the move 48 hours later. We barely had enough time to speculate on the Home and Away Discord. Come join the discussion, link in the show notes, what the potential permutations of this deal were before it was reported on and finalized. The short of it is this: Sporting Kansas City now has opened a second designated player slot, somehow received a transfer fee in return of like $1.5 to $2 million reportedly, and a contract we never thought possible to get out from under is off the books. So my question is this: Mike Burns, what is your libation of choice, and can I send a bottle of it to you? Cody, this is crazy, right?
It's literally unbelievable. I feel like I have tried as hard as I could. I've done my part, Drew, trying to like speak this into existence for a couple of years, and always with tongue in cheek, because I didn't think that, frankly, that anyone would pay money for that player. But lo and behold, it happened, and to get actually a decent return for him, considering his production over the last couple of years, and the how few games he actually played and impacted for the team. It's really, it's amazing, honestly, and Mike Burns deserves a hell of a lot of credit for making it happen, because it's something that really, in our opinion, I think had to happen. Pulido being on the squad very much kind of caused more problems than it seemed to solve, and so I think it kind of, in many respects, simplifies the rest of the job that needs to be done this offseason, and the kinds of players that the team needs to bring in. It's honestly, it's super exciting, and it's much needed, considering a lot of the bad vibes that have been around this team in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think that it does sort of wipe the slate, so to speak. I mean, there are Radia's deal is not the greatest, but it's the last year of that deal this
Hmm.
year. So whether he can play himself into form or not is up to him. But it's not really a weight on the roster. I think that was the big issue with Pulido is like his deal was a weight on the
Yeah,
roster. There was only so much they reasonably could do, and in fact, they almost had to think of ways to enable him
yeah, you had to
to
play
be a
him.
part of this process because
Yeah.
yeah, designated player making we don't know if he was still making 3.6 million next year or this year, right? We'll get into the mechanics of this in a second, but I we don't know exactly what his compensation was, but still he was 100% a DP. There was no way that he
Hmm.
was going down to being bought down from DP status, right? And so he's taking up a DP slot. He is your strike. He is a striker. You have to play him and you have to figure out. And I think that's the point you said is like some of the bad vibes around what happened last year were Peter Vermes trying to find a place for him on the
Hmm.
field
Absolutely.
because he's in the middle of a poor season with a lot of injuries and a lot of and a lot of difficulty trying to find players in form in the right place. You have a guy who was healthy most of that season and you try to find a place to get use out of him because he is ostensibly one of your more talented players.
Yeah.
And it was a mess,
Yeah.
candidly,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it, being able to move on from that does just create so much more optimism about how much they can shift the direction of this club
Hmm. Absolutely.
with the replacements that they can bring in. And I think that and also gives them a lot of capability to go, these are the types of players we want to bring in, and this is the game model we want to implement. And I'm no longer required to sort of route that through a 34-year-old striker
Yeah.
with some of the worst underlying numbers in league history.
Yeah, absolutely. It really opens it really opens the door to all kinds of different options, and not the least of which is either returning to the tried and true 4-3-3, or sticking with a 4-2-3-1. Sticking with a more traditional 4-2-3-1 with like a you know South American style number 10 type player. Like that is an option now, where it probably wasn't as much of an option before, because if you do that, where does Polito fit into that, if you also consider that you have Agata? And so it really it really just, I think, clarifies the options, and clears the path going forward. And now, as you mentioned, now we just need to see some signings to kind of get a good idea of where the team's headed. And I still kind of have a rough time um, imagining what it's going to look like this year, especially based on the current roster. And I was looking over some of the underlying statistics from the last year, and it was really kind of a mixed bag. Um, and a lot of the problems were obviously defensive, but that's not even, as we discussed in the last pod that I actually participated in, it's unlikely we're going to see a lot of defensive signings, at least not
But
starting.
the defensive issues are it doesn't tell the whole story though,
Right.
because
It's,
they gave up
yep.
a lot more goals than they're expected, but that doesn't necessarily, I don't think that's necessarily due to only poor defending. I don't even think it
No,
was poor defending. I think we talked about this. Their midfield was a freaking
yeah,
highway,
it
man.
was poor team defending, right, and
Yes,
not
yes.
just the back line, because one of the things that really stood out in the numbers is that Sporting was uh, they weren't giving up a lot of shots. Like, they were giving up sort of a middle of the pack in terms of number of shots, but they were giving up a lot of really high quality shots that were tough shots to save, and making the job of the goal, whoever was playing goalkeeper, really, really difficult. And as you alluded to, that starts up further up the field with counter pressing, and there were too many there were I don't know.
Right.
There were too many older players, too many free riders, and too many not enough people working off of the ball, not enough ball winning and aggression, and hopefully that is what is going to be the focus moving forward.
Yeah, the xG per shot they gave up versus the xG per shot that they created was a significant disparity, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at their actual xG xGA, it's kind of in line with like 2021,
Hmm.
honestly, as far as like production. I mean, in 2021 wasn't a great, 2021 they went to the playoffs that year, right? So it's like it's not
Hmm.
like they had a pretty decent year in 2021. So it's not that it's more that they underperformed on both, or they overperformed their xG as well, but they underperformed their xGA so badly, and it's not because the defenders were necessarily bad. It's because they defended poorly as a team, as you noted, and there were many circumstances where opponents attacking players were running downhill at a back four.
Hmm.
That's just not that's just
Yep.
not an ideal situation, and that is
Yep.
how those players get into positions where they're getting higher quality shots, higher quality attempts, and also getting they're not pressured enough, so they're able to then take a lower, most xG shots at best are 0.3 to 0.5. Those are like really high quality shots, but when their post shot xG is in 0.7, 0.8 range, that also leads to the fact that there's no pressure on the ball,
Yep.
so the quality of the shot is much better, and it leads to these situations where it looks like bad defending, and in general it is for the team, but not necessarily endemic to the back line specifically, right? I'm not saying that the back line defended well, but I also don't think that they are necessarily solely to blame or even primarily to blame for the defensive issues that the team has. I think you could have Virgil van Dijk back there and they still would have given up some bad goals. So um I think that, to your point, like if we just back this all the way up, the the ability of the team to sort of address a lot of these concerns. We'll get to roster building. It's part of the rundown today, and we'll get to where they are with signings. The flexibility has been created. Burns has done that job, and he has done it well. He has put them in a place where they can go in a variety of directions, and they can let the scouting they've done, the 200 plus players they've scouted and inquired about over the last several weeks, like, and figuring out who they're able to sign, right? And who wants to come and what type of style that fits, and then sort of working the game model to kind of work with that. I mean, I think the sort of adjectives towards the game model, we talk about industrious or teamwork or things like that are just sort of like the platitudes part of the game model. I think are going to stay, right. There are going to be some very specific requirements for Peter Vermes as far as the style of player that we bring in. I don't think I think Ricky Puig would drive Peter Vermes insane to
Yeah.
watch play.
100%.
I mean, Greg Vanny has said the same thing. It's like it took me a while to get to the place where I was comfortable with how he plays soccer, but he's so good that you just sort of have to deal with it. I don't see Vermes being super excited about having to do something like that. So I think that they are going to be players that are meeting sort of those ideals. But as far as formation, as far as possession traits, as far, you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
is it going to be more of a transition based team, is it going to be more of a possession based team, etc., etc.? There are opportunities for them to sort of mold it based on the primary traits of whoever they bring in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is something that was not true prior to Pulido's departure.
Right. I mean, they're Pulido being on the field or having to be on the field was going to really kind of force Sporting Kansas City into a very one of a couple very specific playing styles. And we talked about the importance, if he were here, of signing a number 10 who could get him the ball in the box. And I don't think that goes away. But you have a completely different, if we're considering Willie Agata to be the starter, you have a completely different kind of center forward that you're going to be building around. And I think that Agata much more fits in the sort of Dom Dwyer mode of center forward. And it was a while ago, but that player, Dom Dwyer, had really good seasons with this coach, and they were able to build a team
He had
around
Benny
him.
Feilhaber behind him,
Yeah,
and I
that
think
makes
that
a
that
big
had a lot
difference.
to do with it, right?
Yep.
But I mean,
And Roger
I
Espinosa.
hmm yeah, I think that's what I'm saying is like a good number 10 behind Dom Dwyer is how
Mm-hmm.
he was as successful as he
Yeah.
was. And so I think that that is why you continue to hear Vermes, Burns, Mike Gillick, anybody say a 10 is our most important
Right.
role to fill. It is a role they did not fill after Gotti Kinda left.
Yeah.
We now have a lot more understanding of why it didn't get filled. The thought was there was a lot of conjecture about, oh, they were caught off base. They didn't know he was going to leave. They weren't prepared to sign anybody. No, they didn't have any money to sign
Yeah.
anybody to replace him. So this is how they ended up in this situation. Now, reportedly, they do. They have all of this flexibility. Let's see what they do with it. The financial mechanics of this were sort of interesting to me because when this rumor first came out, as I alluded to on the Discord, we were discussing this and we're like, hey, Pulido's making 3.6 million a year. If you remember, in September of last year, not this past year, but September of 2023, when he signed this extension, he was in the middle of, a high performance, high performing on the goal scoring side. We were concerned about his ability to maintain that level because he was overperforming expectations fairly significantly. But also, we said it. I think I said at the time, hey, like if they can get him back, he was like on 2.2 million, I think that year. It's like if they can get him back at like just right around the TAM max,
Yeah.
so you're not using a DP slot on him. I thought that would be good business, right? And
when they
yeah,
signed him, you and I both were like, well, this must mean that's what
it's a
they gave him,
Tamax. Like that's what we
right?
thought, right? And then we see these reports out of Mexico, like someone's leaking from on the Chivas side to Mexican reporters is like he wanted like almost 4 million a year, and we weren't going to pay that. Like that's basically what the reports were, and we're like, nah, no way, no way, this team is paying him 4 million a year or close to it. Sure enough, they were paying him almost $4 million a year in guaranteed comp. And so when these rumors came out again, and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, if Chivas didn't want to pay him 4 million last year,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to want to pay him that now. Like, what in the world is going on? And I obviously vastly underestimated, the Chivas's interest in making their fans happy by bringing back retreads. They're bringing a bunch of them back this year, by the way. Pulido is only one of them. And obviously Chivas' position in the table is significantly different coming into this offseason than it was going into that offseason. I think they were like fourth or something in overall through for the Apertura Clausura in 2023, and then they're like ninth or 10th this year. So there's different influencing factors in it. But I also so it led us to surmise, hey, is Chivas only picking up part of Pulido's salary? Is Sporting going to have to buy out the rest of it to get him off the books? And for those of you listening that aren't really familiar with these functions, if Pulido were to be transferred out, but Sporting were to, like, this is not uncommon in world football. If you've got a guy on high wages and he doesn't want to take a pay cut, you ship him out for whatever they're willing to pay and you cover the rest. Right. Yep. This is very common in world football for this to happen. I think Marcus Rashford's going to be a high case of this potentially with Manchester United because all the people that are in for him are not paying his $15 million a year salary. I think United's going to have to cover some of that. It happened with Mauricio Pochettino when he signed with the U.S. men's national team. Chelsea's still covering a bunch of his wages. This is very common. But in MLS, it's a little weird because if they're still on his books or still on Sporting Kansas City's books, even though he's playing for Chivas, that charge still sits against their salary cap, even if he's not playing. Similar situation is happening with Atlanta and Mateus Click, who they got from DC United, and DC's only covering Atlanta's only covering like $300K of his salary. So DC United has a dead DP slot this year because they just I don't know. They had to move him out and get some, they didn't want him sitting on the bench, and so they saved $300,000 this way, I guess. But similarly, if Sporting were to be covering part of this salary, it would sit against their salary budget, and to get it off the salary budget, they would have to use their buyout against his contract. So it would have been a surprise to me to see Sporting just rinse money. Like, that's just not
Yeah.
something normally do. Given how hard it was just for them to get this budget to begin with, I would have been surprised to see them do it. But I also was like, hey, if Chivas is willing to cover, say, 2 million of it,
Yeah.
and and I only rinse the rest, I can understand why they would look at it that way. But then we come to find out, not only is not supposedly Alan Pulido's taking a pay cut. I don't know what that pay cut really is. But not only is they're definitely not using a buyout, because they took a transfer fee. Like, Chivas paid a transfer fee to get Alan Pulido's contract, so there's no way they're paying that Sporting is covering any of his salary. And I just obviously vastly underestimated literally the only buyer for Alan Pulido. Like, Chivas is competing with themselves. Like, there's no other market for him.
Thank God nobody in the Chivas club listens to this podcast. That's all I gotta say.
And this has happened. There's multiple situations of this. River Plate is reportedly offering $6 to $10 million for Sebastian Driussi. Okay, I mean, cool. There's just a bunch of Latin American clubs just buying out like terrible contracts of MLS teams, and I mean, I'm here for it. I love that's an opportunity. But yeah, it was very surprising to me. I do think that the reporting of him taking a pay cut is probably oversold a little bit. Usually players participate in a transfer fee when they're transferred to another team. They get a piece of that fee. There's some potential that Pulido's contract was front loaded. I don't have any personal knowledge of that, but it would not be surprising to me.
Yeah.
Some people may be like, well, why would it be front loaded if it's a DP deal? And it's like, because for P&L purposes for the business, right?
Right. And because that's the way that this club operates, right? Is if you front load it and he's only, he's only maxed out in the in DP money the first year, then he's closer to the TAM level, in
well,
following
you can't do
years.
that with a DP though. DPs have to be amortized over the length of the deal. You can do that on a TAM player where you have them close to TAM threshold and then back them off later. You can't do that with a DP. A DP cannot be a DP 1 year and TAM the next year. With the exception of if they're on an option year and their transfer fee has amortized out. But from a salary perspective, because they did this with Zlatan, and that's when it got kiboshed. You were no longer allowed to do it. So LA Galaxy did this with Zlatan. They made him TAM 1 year and DP the next year. So it was like on max TAM the first year he came, and then he was on 7.2 million the next year. And a lot of people got grumpy about that. So
why?
Teams are no longer allowed to do that. So he would have to be making 1.5, $2 million, something like that next year. And it doesn't matter because his cap charge is amortized over the time. So if it cleared the threshold and not being able to be bought down in 2024, it's very unlikely that it would not clear it in 2025.
That makes sense.
Unless he was razor close to the number and the TAM increases because of the salary cap increases got there. But I would be very surprised if that was the case. So I think, but there is a separate part of this that is just not salary cap related, but just the books of the business of the club. Their cash flow, however they're managing their cash flow, however they're doing accounting, it may be beneficial to them to have a big hit of Pulido's salary happen in 1 year and less in the following years, because if they plan to spend money on other players, it allows them to balance their books over time and keep them sort of flat. There's a variety of reasons why they would do that, but it's not uncommon for Sporting to do this with players where they front load a contract of an older player specifically. Usually younger players, you can't get away with that, but older players you can. So we don't know of that. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. Regardless, His contract's off the books. They have a DP slot open. They have a striker I'm perfectly comfortable with starting on day one. And they have a lot of options. So I think I mentioned this on social media, Blue Sky, right after it happened. I was like, okay, Mike Burns, great job. Like I said, if there's a whiskey you like, let me know. I'm happy to get you a bottle. But we've only done the first part of the rebuild, which is clearing the way to start bringing players in. We have to start bringing players in.
Yeah.
Right? There's 19 players on the roster. 6 of them are on the supplemental roster. And there are also, Zoran Basong and guys like that.
Probably not starting quality players on
right. Basong's probably the only one on the senior roster that I would say is not of significant use possibility.
Yeah.
The rest are all players you expect to play a decent amount of minutes. Leibold is ostensibly probably going to be the backup left back, but Basong and Leibold are probably the ones that stand out as like very much role players. Volater, but there are a lot of open spots and a lot of flexibility, and so it's like, hey, camp starts on Monday. On the 12th? Or is it Sunday? Anyway, the 12th of January, camp starts. Who's going to this camp? Right?
In the old days when they used to have dodgy streams of preseason games, they would have players out there that just were like trial list number 1 and trial list number 2. That we might be looking at something similar.
We're probably going to have some of that. I mean, this has been by far, I know that, I think that there's reasonable concern about the state of the roster right now. Like if you are not hyper plugged into this, like you and I are, and just sort of like looking at this as sort of the global market and when they could potentially make signings and historically when they've made signings from external and all the different kind of pieces that go together to fill a team out, and you're coming off the season they just had as a fan, you're going like, we're going to win the spoon, right? Like, and on the basis of the current roster, I can understand why you would come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, I will eat my hat if the roster looks like this in April. Like, it's just not going to be the case, right? They are going to sign more players. They are going to be thoughtful about what type of players they bring in. Do I expect them to sign 2 DPs before the window closes? No, I do not. I mean, realistically, I don't. They've been very clear about focusing on signing the number 10. I think that there's their primary focus. I think that a U22 winger is another primary focus. I think you can expect those 2 to get over the line in some way before the end of the window. But again, the window doesn't close for several months, and we're right in the middle of the European window being open right now. So a lot of the players they're targeting are testing the market in Europe as well. They're trying to figure out whether or not they have options there. And it's probably going to be late January, early February before some of these external signings get across the line. And I know that worries people for the fact that there's a game on February 18th at Children's Mercy Park. I got to be honest, I just don't care that much about that game. And I'm not saying we shouldn't care about it. I mean, it's Miami. Messi's coming to town, all the stuff. You missed the conversation that I had with Sperry about this when you were out sick. But I think that's, yes, from that perspective, you want to try. But I am not in the least bit concerned with trying to bring a bunch of players in to make us ready for February 18th. And at the same time, mortgaging all of this flexibility and space creativity and like opportunity for planning a club that the team has right now. They're a borderline expansion team at this point.
Yeah.
With the amount of GAM that they're going to have available, like I'm looking at this right now. This includes having 2 DPs on the roster. So this would even be signing 2 DPs, 4 U22s, and making some assumptions about like Jake Davis's contract as well as, just using last year's numbers for all the other players. They have the two DP slots, two U22 slots, and $3.5 million they can spend on the middle of the roster. That's great, but I don't I don't want them trying to do that all at once, because that's how you're going to make mistakes. And that's how you're going to end up back in this situation where you've given out 2 to 3 year contracts and they're all lined up together. And you're going to end up with this weird situation where the team is every 3 years, like breaking out the broom and trying to start over. And that's not how good football clubs are run.
Yeah.
It needs to be iterative. It needs to happen over time, right? There needs to be constant influx of new, moving out old. Like that is how football teams run. And we need to they need to start building that schedule of rotation of
Right.
talent through the roster, and it starts here, and it starts with not filling every single roster slot by March.
Yeah, I mean that's and your point is well taken. Like that's how we sort of ended up in this predicament in the first place. You have to build roster churn into your game model, into your club's model. You have to be bringing in players and shuttling out players constantly. And if you don't, because if you don't, um, because we know they're not going to pull the trigger on coaching changes like other clubs do, and so if you have issues with your team, it has to be the players, right? That get changed, and so you have to be able to build that into your strategy. And so I think that you're right on. I think that but before even worrying about signing, how many players they're going to sign or where they're going to sign, what positions, like we just I think want to see one signing would be nice, like just something. And I think that this is where the tight-lipped nature of the club really kind of does them a disservice, because fans are rightly kind of snake bit and anxious about what's happening, because you know there's nothing, like there's not even rumors, right? It's just like radio silence.
It went 48
And
hours from the guy standing out in front of Chivas' facilities to announcement. Like
yeah,
this wasn't something that had been grumbling about for 3 weeks.
that's other clubs run that way, but that is not the way this club is run.
Yeah.
It's I think a little pointless to like pine for that. You just have to kind of accept it and realize that I think that given I think that what has transpired this week should make everybody a lot more at ease with things moving forward. That things are going to be done the right way, and that even if that takes a little bit longer, and even if nobody hears leaks or rumors of any kind, that's like the Pulido thing is such a big deal. Like to me personally, it's such a positive benchmark that it's really earned. It's earned the club, I think, a little bit of grace. And I always, from mid last season, I figured that the beginning of this season was going to be challenging, and that's okay. I mean, you just got to make it into the playoffs. I mean, very very honestly.
Yeah, the team was very clear about the 3 window
Yeah,
rebuild, and this is the first of the 3. Like Burns wasn't around for the summer window.
yeah.
Don't
Everybody was hoping that
Joaquin
that was the first
Fernandez was
window.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah. Nah, that ain't it.
no.
And so I think that's something that just needs to be considered. Is this is the first of a 3 window rebuild. If you're hoping that the team is going to look like a really well-oiled functional machine on not even February 18th, but like the home opener, it's just not. That's not, you can't turn over this many players at once and have that happen. um I understand, like it's here's the thing. I wholeheartedly understand the discontent, the anxiety, the cynicism, all the stuff around it. Because candidly, all while Mike Burns has done a very good job of putting the team in a place to go build, they haven't done any building yet. We haven't seen
Right.
any signings. We haven't seen anything
Right.
of significance. And candidly, even after we've seen all the signings, we need to see them on the field before we even have any idea if they're good or not. Right.
Right.
But it's
Unless
also
it's
like,
unless it's Kevin De Bruyne, and then we're like, okay, you
right. Well,
did
that's
it.
not happening.
But
He's going to San
job done.
Diego.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know if he's going to San Diego or not. But anyway, that's where the rumblings are. But yeah, you're right. Unless it's some sort of like very well known commodity of quality, yeah, that we're going to have to see this vet out. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. I mean, for you and I, it's great because there's something fresh to talk about with this club. There will be new players. There will be probably new tactical ideas and new ways these players can be used. I'm very, very, very excited for that because the last 3 years of this podcast have been a lot of the same shit over and over again. And it's very refreshing to see some change. But I also understand from a cynical point of view, if you've been a fan of this team for a long time, you're like, well, why should I believe all this shit that's being said? I haven't seen any action yet.
Yep.
And I understand that, and that's fair. And I also
The
understand the
thing is,
level.
the thing is too is like if you're paying attention to the league at large, other teams are doing things right.
Well, there's 30 teams in the league, so there's
right.
always news every day,
That's
right? Like
very
that's the
true.
problem. Tom Bogert wakes up every morning and rips off 10 different announcements of players being signed, and it seems like everyone in the league is doing something other than you.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's 3 or 4 teams that you're seeing
Yeah.
doing something out of 30 each day. So like, yeah, it does, but it's easy to feel that way, right? When
Yep.
none of the announcements are about your team, you're just like, what in the hell is happening? What is going on? And again, this goes back to your earlier point about just sort of the insular and opaque nature of how the front office is run. There's not a whole lot of news that gets let out of the building. I think Sperry said something on the Discord about this when the Pulido news was about to break. And I think it was the morning of the announcement. And I think someone had just asked, like, do you know what's going on with this? And I think his response was, I've been sworn to secrecy, so that should probably tell you something. And I think the question is like, well, why is it that they won't let you report on this? And he's like, sometimes you just have to play the game. Like, people aren't
Yeah.
willing to go on the record.
Yep.
And I think the environment of Sporting Kansas City is such that they're rarely going to go on the record until something's done. I understand the conservatism. You never really know when the other shoe's going to drop on something like this. I certainly was worried for 48 hours that something was going to go wrong. Pulido was going to fail his medical. You know what I mean? Like there was going to be something like
I was
that.
like, this can't be true. This can't be happening.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I understand where that anxiety comes from. And with 19 players on the roster, 2 of which are 16 years old, and the another 5 of which should not play more than 800 minutes for this team next year, if we're if we're doing this the right way. I understand where the anxiety comes from, looking at the current situation, knowing that camp starts on Sunday. Like I get it. And I'm not saying it's misplaced. But I will also say the same thing I said on the Discord. We're here to provide a little bit of realism about what's likely and what's reasonable about what they should accomplish. Cameron put a post on there and he's like, look, here's what I'd like to see. DP number 10, U22 winger, some central midfield and right back depth. That's what I'd like to see. And I think I wholeheartedly agree with those things.
Yep.
I'd be very surprised to see us sign in a veteran backup goalkeeper of some kind, right?
Yeah.
Somebody like Elliot Panico just became available from Nashville. Like somebody like that, Panico, you could probably get on the supplemental roster, even on the senior max or senior minimum. So like something like that, a Kendall McIntosh type, right? In goal, and then in the goalkeeping room, and then it's some central midfield depth and a high upside right winger and a DP number 10, I think that's a reasonable expectation of
100%.
where this team is probably going to focus. And there will probably be 4 to 5 slots on the roster that will not be filled when the window closes. And that's okay. That's okay. It will give how much have we been crying for Peter Vermes to play the kids a little bit? We've got guys in Steven Afrifa and Elenis Vargas who need to play minutes.
Absolutely.
And if we bring in super high quality, Gabriel Peck types to those positions, those guys will never see the field.
Yep.
And so I think that it's okay in the short term for those guys to sharpen themselves a little bit and we can see what they have and create some rotation. Um, for whatever reason, some of these conversations have led me back to, pre um, the Pulido Kinda acquisitions and whatnot, to the last time the team was really good in 2018 when they were really a DP striker. They were an Alan Pulido away from winning the cup
Yep.
that year and didn't sign him for another 2 years. But as we've heard since then, Pulido had that striker signed, ready to go, and ownership was like, nah. Anyway, but I looked at that team and there was a ton of valuable rotation in that team.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull up FB Ref from 2018, you see a bunch of guys who contributed fairly significantly and are players that you would have considered at the time and maybe even consider now to be useful players. The front line rotated a bunch. You had Johan Quase, you had Gerso Fernandez, you had Diego Rubio, you had Kyrie Shelton was playing center forward a lot that season, Daniel Shallowy. And then you had a midfield of Felipe Gutierrez, Roger Espinoza, and Ilie. That team was fucking good. Like, it was good. But there was a lot of attacking rotation on that team. They were able to move players in and out of the lineup. There was obviously a peak Iko Para season, which always helps, right? Next to Matt Beasler. Graham Zusi, moving to right back. Like, that team was pretty good, and it had value, 20, 21 players deep on the roster. And you can just sort of look at what the team has become since then. Obviously they made the big acquisitions of Pulido and Kinda and then nothing. And you can see just like how, to get David Goss's point on Soccer Wise this week, he was like, for the last 2 years, they just kept running it back when nothing you saw from that team made you think this is something we want to run back and we'll get better. Right. Yeah. And, we now know the reason they kept running it back is because they didn't have any other choice.
Yep.
That was just what they had. The roster was what they had. Now, to completely reinvent it is not something that's going to happen in one transfer window. And I wish it could, but it's just not. It's not reasonable. And also, the other thing I would say about that before you get to your point is that the front office was, as of June 28th or whenever they announced Mike Burns, the front office was Mike Burns and a couple scouts.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Kovzan and doing some stuff, right? Like, there were more people than that, but it wasn't that much. There wasn't that much of a staff there. So he's been having to build that staff at the same time that he goes through, Mike Burns that is still having to build that staff out, turn it into a legitimate front office staff in MLS at the same time that he's trying to identify players, figure out, feasibilities of signing, figure out the quality of the scouting that he's getting, because a lot of them have been contract scouts. He's trying to hire full-time scouts. There's just so much going on, man. And you have to get this DP number 10 right. Otherwise, you end up in a Driussi type hole.
Right.
So, there's just... As much as I would love it to be push button, team fixed, it's not reality. It can't be that way. And in fact, I wouldn't want them to try to do that, because they are going to fuck some shit up if they do.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that 2018 team had a lot of players who were professionals, either in their prime or just entering their prime or just barely leaving their prime. I mean, this is a team that's 16, 18 players deep. And
a lot of them were 24 to 28.
Right. And even Melia was 31, which is, and still in your prime as a goalkeeper. And Espinosa and Zusi were both 31. And so, it makes a huge difference. And you're not going to see that, with this current squad. And so it's going to take time, like you said, a couple of windows in order to sort of build it out the way that it needs to, be built out. So it's a crack up, looking at that, Christian Lobato, and
Christian Lobato played some left back that season.
he
That
did.
was one of the can we replace
Uh
Sesanovic with somebody
huh.
years, because
Uh
Jimmy
huh.
Madronda played a little left back that year
Yes,
too, I
he
think.
did. Yes, he did. Yeah,
Um,
wild.
so I think that, like, that's the impetus for this conversation is it time to panic? No, it's not, because first of all, realistically, if you're looking at 2025 as being any type of trophy contending season, it's
Yeah,
not. It's
agree.
not. It is a season that we are looking for this club to drastically shift how they go about roster building and create a base, a foundation
Hmm.
for the next 5 years. Um, I don't want to make compare. I don't, I don't. I hate making comparisons because sometimes they're taken out of context. But I liken it to like the first season that Arteta was at Arsenal. That team was pretty bad that
They
year.
were terrible.
They were
Yeah,
they were garbage, right?
yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of how Arsenal play now. Like, I don't like the soccer that much, but they
They're committing the cardinal sin. They play they play boring soccer,
they play
and
boring soccer. They
that's
do.
only okay if you
Well,
win.
and it's only gotten even more boring since Saka got hurt. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think that, but that's my point. Is it took a couple years before they
Yep.
became consistent title contenders, right? And because it took time for them to rebuild the roster, for Arteta to get his scheme in place, his game model in place with the new people, and build it up based on that. And obviously, Vermes is not a new coach, but Vermes is a fairly smart tactician. Like, I
Hmm.
don't think Vermes tactically is a problem. Game managing, a little bit of a problem. But tactically, he is a very good coach, and he's a smart coach, and he's an aware coach. And I think that he will be able to build a tactical plan to work with these players. But it's going to take some time to get all of that together. It's not going to work right away. And again, like I said, some players also aren't going to be available right now,
Hmm.
especially for scouting Europe. A
Yep.
lot of players may or may not be able to be available in this window. This is the hardest window to shop in Europe. The summer is much easier. So I think that from that perspective, you also have to be realistic about what talent is available. Additionally, giving yourself flexibility each window to do things and making
Hmm.
that sort of a rotating sort of philosophy, as I alluded to earlier. So, is it time to panic yet? I don't think so, because I your expectation should not be that this team is top of the table and going into April. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been before all these exits and before no signings happen. Your expectation should be this team is showing progress in modernizing the way it goes about building its roster and building it and using a game model to, you know, identify the right players and bring them in and scout and identify and sign the right kind of players to make the team better. And you're going to see parts of that this window, I think. And also, it's MLS. The first 6 weeks of the season, the first 8 weeks of the season are the most chaotic and most disconnected from what the end of the season looks like.
Yeah.
Like, all the teams are figuring shit out. They all have a
Yeah.
bunch of new players. The weather, all different kinds of things come into play. It's always the first 2 months of the season always make the least amount of sense
Yeah.
related to what the rest of the year turns out to be. So maybe they pull off a couple fun wins when they shouldn't win, and maybe some luck goes their way, because they did not get any good luck last year at all.
Well,
And
and
so,
to that point, I think that April and May are key months to look at. Um, because the team will have bedded in by that time. All of your signings will be hopefully um, um, you know adapted and ready to go. And April and May, frankly, is what buried this team last year, because they went 10 straight games without picking up any points, or without a win, I should say. And so um, they definitely can't afford to do that. Um, um, so I think that I just think it's worth keeping in mind there's a lot more to look for in terms of of signs of progress than just signings, right? Because the team is really going to have to reset um, their whole mindset on the field, and I think that is like for me personally, that's what I'm going to be looking for, even more so than impact of whatever signings that they make is, how is the team playing together? Are we solving that issue where, the back line and the midfield are so spread out from one another? Are we moving off the ball? Those are the things that I'm going to be looking for, and those are things that take a while to develop, right? And so I think that like we'll have a very good idea of um, how much potential the team has um, by the end of May.
I would hope so. Yeah, the end of May I think is reasonable. I mean, it's key to note that the MLS primary transfer window doesn't close until April 23rd. So you can bring players in all the way until the 23rd of April. Now, a lot of other clubs are not going to be willing to release players that late,
Right.
right? So, while that is realistically true, that's why Sporting had to knee jerk pay a bunch of money for Danny Rosero, is because they needed a center back so bad, and they had to get him out of Colombia while they were in the middle of their season, and it took money to accomplish that. So I think that they don't want to put themselves in that type of situation where they're panic paying for something, and I don't think they will.
No, there's
Like,
no
and
reason to.
there's literally no reason to. Like, I do not want them making a panic signing to assuage fans' concerns about the fact they didn't get stuff over the line. I'll
Yeah.
be frustrated by the fact they don't get stuff over the line if that's what happens, but that's part of this. Sometimes signings work, sometimes they don't work. I think it's obviously a more outsized impact to this roster given how few players are on it currently.
Hmm.
So if they're unable to get signings over, that does drastically lower their ceiling for going into the summer window. I totally understand. And the summer window being when it is, 2/3 of the season's over by the time it opens. So, like, I get it. I understand that completely. But also, they should not be mortgaging the future in order to slightly improve their outlook in 2025. That should not be the goal. And if that means that they're a little light because certain deals didn't get done, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And they've got to go and then be aggressive in the future windows to get those deals over the line.
It's hard to write off a season before it's even happened, especially when you're laying out your hard-earned money for season
Yeah,
tickets. But I mean, the fact is next year was always going to be a transitional year, and it's a good idea to keep expectations, reasonable but low.
yeah. I mean, I don't want the team to be competing for the spoon. I don't. And in fact, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think that enough um, locker room change has happened and enough new players will be coming in that it will shift the dynamic a little bit and create a little bit of freshness that is desperately needed.
Yeah, totally agree.
And that's really what I'm most excited for going in. As I'm looking at this, obviously they need to sign some play. They need to just for the purposes of being able to field a team. They need to sign some players, but also for competitiveness. We want them to at least look like they belong, right? And I think that there's some work to do on the signing side to accomplish that.
Well, before the season starts, we'll have to do a spoon pick because it's hard to pick this year. Some of the
Yeah, I
perennial
mean,
spoon
but this
contenders
is
are going to be a lot better.
but the other thing is because I think that's part of the problem and part where some of the anxiety comes from is
Hmm.
the traditional spoon contenders have been extremely active already,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think that is the thing that's causing people to get a little frustrated is that you see Bruce Arena, basically bring, half of his old Revs team over to San Jose. You see the Fire be very aggressive, but they also cut some dead weight. They got out Gaston
hmm,
Jimenez's
yep,
deal. They moved on from a lot of different players as well as being aggressive and acquiring them. So I think that And I will also say that Berhalter had a very involved plan for his staffing and was very aggressive about bringing it in very quickly. So, to that aspect, I can sort of understand a little bit of concern at the pace at which Sporting is operating, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems borderline glacial compared to what Berhalter has done in Chicago. So I do recognize the comparison. Also, though, Joe Mansueto will give them money,
Yep.
any amount of money. The budget that Sporting received took a lot of convincing
Hmm.
to get it. Okay, and so Burns has got to be really thoughtful about how he operates with it because it's not without strings. Let's put it that way. So it is something that he needs to be thoughtful about utilizing, and I think and Vermes is also the type of person that is going to be fairly conservative about how he goes about things too. So just is what it is. Last thing on the news side of things with Sporting, Zoran Savic, Z, longtime assistant coach for the coaching staff, leaves the coaching staff. Basically, just a New Year's Eve sort of quick article on sportingkansascity.com and a couple social media posts, and that was it. And Z was gone. And now his replacement um, has been posted on LinkedIn as a job opportunity. So if you've got a USSFA or UEFA A license and you want to be an assistant coach, um, it said preferred, not required,
Oh, okay, good.
Cody. So
There's a possibility.
there's a possibility. But you know, it's hard for me to separate the personal from the job performance a little bit when it comes to Z, because Z is someone I've met, I've interacted with, and unbelievably cool dude. Like, I like him as a person, and has been on this staff for a long time and has been in the Kansas City soccer scene for a long time. And so it is, it is kind of a significant shift. But also, I saw a lot of people noting this, and I think from the performance side of things, it was sort of a necessary and eye-opening shift that they would make this change. Right, this is someone who had been with Vermes basically the entirety of the time he was coaching, and he's been coaching in Kansas City, has been a staple on that coaching staff, as I noted. So for him to leave, and then didn't seem like they had a replacement identified. It's hard to kind of know exactly what went on there, but I think a fresh outlook in the coaching room is something we have discussed for a while. It might be useful, and also, I don't know this for a fact, but I've often seen Z when he's talking to subs and before they go in, he's usually the guy holding all the set piece artwork and telling them what the set piece designs are going to be. And we know that that is an area that needs some help on this club, in this club. So
Yeah.
maybe there's an opportunity for some upgrades in that department. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like from the personal side, I don't ever want to see somebody I know and like be unemployed.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Z. He's going to be fine. But also, I think from a performance side of things, this team has needed a little bit of a fresh injection of ideas in the coaching room for a while.
Absolutely.
That's really good analysis from you, Cody. Thanks.
I'm so, I apologize.
No, I'm just messing with. I'm totally messing with you.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I think that clubs need like coaching churn as much as they need roster churn. I mean, you can't just have the same people doing things the same way for a decade. It just it doesn't work. It especially doesn't work in any place other than Kansas City. And so I think that new ideas and fresh perspectives are important, and you don't get that if you don't bring in new people.
Yet Bruce Arena brought Grandpa Dave with him to San Jose. So some things, I mean, some of those guys, they're hard to break certain habits.
Bruce's vibes will never die.
They
is
will.
he
He
is
does have some. He does have some other guys, Shelby Joseph, and a few
yeah,
others that are like
yeah.
newer and guys that he coached at one point that he does bring in. So I shouldn't say that he's always that way, but Grandpa Dave I think will always be next to him as long as he wants to do it. We talked a lot about roster building already, so I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on this, but we have been sort of, during the offseason looking at and sort of tactical corner. I mean, tactical corner is sort of useless right now because one, we don't know any idea what the roster is going to look like, and
Yeah.
two, we don't know how Peter Vermes might potentially look to use the roster that he has. But from a roster building perspective, we touched on a few of these already. Um, I thought it was important to kind of segue from the discussion around Z's job to this because if you actually look at the job rec on LinkedIn, a very specific part of it is being able to coach players in, and interact with and integrate with the design game model and being able to help ensure that it is, I forget what the phrase was, but from top to bottom that the game model was the primary sort of north star. And that's not what it says, but
That's
that was
vertical integration, Drew. Come
vertical
on.
integration. That's not what it says either. But the point of it is, yeah, like the game model was a key part of the job description. Was like,
Yeah.
can you need to be able to help direct and people and use the game model as the primary coaching philosophy, right? And I thought that was interesting because we don't hear game model discussed about at all from the staff, like publicly, right? Like that's never something you hear. You hear nerds like us talk about it. If you listen to other people who discuss tactics and how teams are built, you hear them talk about game models. You don't really hear staffs talk about it publicly that much. So we know it's something that is used. We know it is something that's integral. But for it to be literally in the job rec, to be an assistant coach on this team, like I thought that was important, and I think it leads me to this whole roster building philosophy. The game model, these players, they have an idea of what they want the game model to be. They're scouting and looking at players and trying to find ones that fit within that, and the philosophy of building the roster has to my point earlier, sort of center around your best players, and they don't have the best players yet, right? And I think that that's a part I'm a little bit sort of like I'm a little bit hesitant to say they should go sign this guy or they should go sign this guy because we don't know who the sort of center of the universe is when it comes to how they're going to implement the game model around XYZ players, right? And it's not to say that those players that's the only player that matters when you look at like how you're developing a tactical plan within your game model. But if you just went and spent $10 million on a player, you ideally want to maximize that player's effectiveness, right? And also, that player better be someone that fits within your game model and your philosophy. There's traits and the way they play soccer better fit within that. So that's where I'm interested to see where Sporting starts, I guess is my point, right? Because you would expect the best players that you sign to be adaptable in some ways, but also in the margins of players that they'll be looking at acquiring, none of them are complete at every level, right? They're not 100% good at everything. There's one guy that does that, and he plays for Miami. So like there are going to be limitations, and so I'm very interested to see how they go about that because I think that they're in a position where they can wait until they know what good player DP number 10 they have that they can get over the line before they concern themselves too much with all of the sort of supporting cast that fills out the rest of the tactical plan that sort of fits in the game model. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I find that players don't necessarily, you can't just go like, I think a lot of times people think about roster building as like 4-3-3. I need, I need to do this like I see on a football manager map, right? Here's, inside winger, inside, two inverted
Right.
wingers, striker, complete forward or whatever, right? And the different, wing back type or I mean like all this stuff. It's like you're trying to plug a bunch of like Legos together, right? And just go, this person does this and this person does this. When realistically, especially at MLS talent levels, that's you're generally going to have fairly significant traits of one type or another that you need to surround them with other players that fill in those areas. And the reason I bring this up is because we had the conversation on the Discord about Elia moving to Austin on a TAM deal, it looks like, or sub TAM deal. And the sort of wailing that happens sometimes on the Cauldron Facebook and Reddit about the fact that Elia was so good at LAFC. Why did we let him go? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, Elia has a couple otherworldly traits. His ability to read the game and his ability to hit a pass are elite, extremely good. He has a lot of other deficiencies. And if you don't surround him with people that cover over those deficiencies, you can't get the most out of him. And in fact, you create problems for the other players on your team. And so that's, I'm left in this position where it's like, do they need to start at the top and then start building out around, or do they just start bringing in who they like and and then as they get closer to a completed roster, start looking at which ones actually plug into those areas that they need the best? I don't know. Like, there's so much work to do. I'm almost like not sure where to start, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean, I was, I was looking over the roster today, and it's, I was trying to imagine like how this team is going to play, because you always look at a roster and you look at the coach and you think, like, how is this team going to score? How is this team going to keep other teams from scoring? What are the strengths, or areas of strength, areas of weakness? And it's really a mixed bag with this team, right? They still have a lot of sort of disparate pieces that don't necessarily seem to fit together with one another, and so my thought all along, before the Pulido news, is that they were going to try and maximize his value, and that meant getting a number 10 who could sort of knit together Radia and Pulido. But I don't know that's necessarily the thing that's going to happen now. I do think that Radia does still pose some problems. And it's just a sort of whether or not it's about the extent to which you have to at least hedge towards a double pivot to help cover his deficiencies
Yeah,
versus
but I
how.
think he's worse in a double pivot than in a
No,
single
no.
one.
Well, right, and so I agree. And when I say hedging towards a double pivot, that means like maybe him not not in the picture as much, uh, and because that's what they did last season, especially when he was injured. And then I think towards the end of the season, they started playing more in a way that would suggest a single pivot, but they also ended the season pretty terribly. Not winning games, and so it's like even that talking about that issue, like so much depends on who the center backs are. Like, if are we expecting
It's Rosero and Fernandez.
right? So it's Rosero and Fernandez, but how we have not really seen those two play together, and
Fernandez
so
played 120 or 105 minutes or something like that. Like,
and
we don't know
and
anything about him.
and most of that was with Volader, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
Um,
Rosero was hurt.
right.
Yeah.
And so, uh, like, who knows how those two players are going to play together and how they're going to complement one another, and that has a huge effect on what's where you build out from, right? Like absolutely, the focus should be the spine. And so if we're going with Pulse Camp and then those two center backs, and then it's just a matter of sorting out what happens in the midfield. And I think we're all assuming that Jake Davis is written in pen in the midfield.
He's
But
in the Roger spot on the right side at 8, right? And
right,
then you've probably got Tommy in the left side at 8-10, right? And then
yeah,
Rada, yeah, I mean, it looks to me like a 4-3-3 the
yep,
way that the roster is built right now, doesn't it?
100%.
Like the only reason they ever did the 4-2-3-1 was because of Pulido, because they're
Yeah,
trying to shoehorn him onto
hmm,
the field in some way,
totally
right?
agree.
That was it. And then they were sort of married to it later in the season, and especially because Radia was injured a lot, and they just stuck with the Basong and Davis was probably the best double pivot that we saw.
That's crazy to think about. Like,
Isn't it?
it's
Yeah,
a weird
it's kind of
sentence to
wild.
come out of your someone's mouth, right? But
That's who started in a cup
yeah,
final for the team, and
yep,
they were probably the most functional that we had seen during that
yeah.
final. So, but that's not a long term plan, right? That is here's me trying to come up with something that is functional based on the players I have to available
The
to me.
what you just said about
Yeah, the double
song,
pivot
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
Basong and Davis.
100%, yeah,
Yeah, that's not a long term plan, and Vermes, I think, call him an ideologue if you want to, but he sees the game a certain way, and he sees it with free eights. Like that's just
yep,
kind of how he sees it,
yeah,
right? And
yep.
um, there's nothing wrong with that, but that also sort of, you know,
He
will
says he's
should
Hungarian, but he's actually Dutch.
he is 100%. It's like, total football is his way, man. And
Yeah,
he's a big Pep Guardiola fan as well,
hmm,
right? Like a lot of control, a lot of positional, positional play is a thing that he loves, and there's a reason it's built from the 4-3-3. Just the spacing works perfectly for it, right? There's just so much about how he would prefer to set the team up that is in that style. So that also informs the type of player that he might sign, right? When he talks about a 10, it's really that left-sided sort of 8-10, right?
right.
Felipe Gutierrez, Benny Feilhaber, like a defensively responsible ground covering 10 that can unlock, can get on the move in space, like that kind of stuff is what he's looking for. Can provide that final ball to Willie Agata, because we know Willie's going to get into goal scoring areas. Like that is
Mhm.
something he is extremely good at. And so yeah, you're right. Like, what does that look like? I don't know. Like, I think based on the way the roster looks right now, it's Eric, Tommy, Jake Davis, and Nemanja Radia, right?
Yep, yeah,
Um,
and then Shallowy and a free throw,
mm-hmm, most likely, yeah,
and Dembe and Kyrie Shelton.
yeah, exactly, and probably a 3-2-5 possession shape.
Yeah, like every other club in the entire world.
Exactly. I know it's boring, but I mean, that's again. I think there will be wrinkles. Like to act like Peter Vermes doesn't change his tactical plan or try to set up his team against other teams is not true. Like we know
Yeah.
that that's not true. But yeah, I mean,
Well, like
we also
so,
know the first 10 games of the season are going to be installing the system and putting it in place, right? And so it will be a little bit rigid during that time frame, which is another reason why I'm not that concerned about do they have all of their players signed
yeah.
right away, because the soccer we're going to be watching is fairly systematic at that point.
And and one of the tweaks that we could see is I could see the sticking with that 3-2-5 in build out, but instead of having for instance, Kyrie Shelton stay and be the third center back, it could be Radia dropping back in between Rosero and Fernandez, which frankly I think would probably be better because Radia does not really add anything in the final third at all, and so I think that is a tweak uh, that I've thought about that we could see that I think that would be a positive.
when you would see then Shelton inverting into the midfield then?
No, I mean, I think Shelton. I think Shelton can get up the field and be involved in the attack. And I
Well,
would
so then
say
so Jake Davis is sitting in the midfield by himself like a 3-1-6.
no. No, I would say that.
Because Tommy's not going to sit back there.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yes. So I mean, it could be Shelton. I mean,
I'm actually intrigued. I'm actually
We've
intrigued
seen
by
Shelton
that.
do that, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
invert into
I
the midfield. He's a
he,
good passer. He's a
he
really
is
good passer.
he
Yeah,
and he's much more adept at those final third passes than Roddy is, and so I think that might be preferable.
he sees them at a very high level, like
Yeah.
Shelton does. He sees those passes. He sees them develop, and not all of them come off because not everyone's. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? Like they're not always going to come off, but he sees them and delivers them in the
Hmm.
right places a lot. I've actually that was the one part of him playing right back towards the end of the year I really enjoyed was watching, especially when he was on my side of the field,
Hmm.
watching him and his vision. And typically when he's on my side, that's the goal I'm in front of as well. So it's like I get a really good look at him in possession, like right in front of in the attacking third. And I was very impressed with his vision and his
Well,
ability to get a
he's
pass.
already shown that he can sort of invert into that half space and deliver balls into the box, and so I think that would be
And
worth
in
at
an
least.
Agata, you have a much better player for getting on crosses.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's just like there's I don't dislike that at all. I'm more thinking like what is the profile of player that they should be targeting outside of DP number 10, right? Or U22 right winger. I think we all know what they're looking for on the right side of the attack. They want someone who will invert. They want someone who is probably a left-footed right winger who's going to cut in on their dominant foot and then try to take fullbacks 1v1 from the top of the corner or from the corner of the box, right? Like we know, and then there will be overlaps either from the fullback or from the 8, right, on that side. The question is who are the types of players they look at sort of in um the middle, sort of the middle of the roster that can fill some of those roles, right? Because in central midfield, they have Zorn Basong, ostensibly a left back who was pulled off the Romanian league trash heap last year.
And
They
now
had
on the Canadian national team, you know.
on the Canadian, yeah, made a couple caps for the Canadian national team. I mean, good for Zorn, like honestly.
Hmm. Yeah.
And he, by all accounts, is a great locker room guy and a great like vibes guy too. So like you need those guys on your team, which is great. But like legitimate central midfielders, they have Memo Rodriguez, they have Jake Davis, they have Derek Tommy, they have Nemanja Radia. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think that I would not be surprised to see them continue to sort of de-emphasize passing and emphasize work rate and ball winning and pressing. It would not surprise me at all to see this team sort of revert to more of a pressing style next season, and because they've been drifting away from the
Well,
high
then
possession,
Radia definitely needs to sit in the back three then,
right?
because I do
That
not. He's useless at that.
Amen. And that's part of what led me to that thinking is that um, I think that when you look at the wingers that we have in Afrifa and Vargas,
Those
and
are guys you need
they
to play
are
into space, like play
right,
them into space, right?
right,
And that is
and they
something
are
this team hasn't done in a long time.
and they're not possession guys. I mean, they're just not like they're not Sportalona tiki taka type of players. That those days are long gone. And so, and you have a lot of players in Agata and Tommy. You have two more players who are very direct and not so much possession heavy players. And so, I would
In
kind of
fact,
I would.
asking Agata to dribble is a good way to lose the ball. Like,
This is true.
if you look at he has some of the best G plus in the league last year,
Yeah.
but his big negative is dribbling. Like it's just not he's not good at carrying the ball. Like don't ask him to do it, just don't. So yeah, you're right. Like if you look at the attacking pieces they have, the only one that's good on the ball is probably Shallowy.
Yeah. That's very true. I mean, Tommy is good on the ball, but in a different way, right? He's not a passer. He's
Tommy's
more
good
of
at carrying the ball into zone
right.
14.
There we go.
He's not a
Yep.
guy that's gonna cut somebody up 1v1.
Right.
Shallowy is literally the only guy in the attacking half of the field that can do that.
Yeah.
With any type of consistency. So yeah, I agree. If you look at the pieces they have, you would look at more of a pressure transition based setup, right? Still in a sort of counter pressing positional play type of way, the Vermes style of it,
Hmm.
but certainly trying to create turnovers and cut loose. Maybe a little more Ange Postacoglu style of doing it, right?
Well, and without having to account for Fontas, it's likely that they will play a much higher line, I think, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, it,
I don't know how fleet of foot Joaquin Fernandez is. It sounds like he was pretty good in his physicals and stuff like that when they finally got him out through a sort of early, mid season, preseason and whatnot. But
I think Rosero's good enough. He looked, Fernandez looked okay. Definitely not, as slow as our friend Fontas. And I think that playing more of a sweeper role suits Poles Camp as well. And so
he
I don't
does
know.
like to come off his line a lot. He's actually a pretty good long passer as well.
Mm,
So I think that's so this is the stuff I'm talking about. It's like how you're kind of putting these pieces together. When
yeah.
I appreciate you kind of thinking, kind of going like, who's the center back's going to be, and it helps because I think we're in our minds sort of sussing this out as we think about it. But that's also what the team should be doing, right?
Sure.
Looking at you should be building from, as you say all the time, building from the spine and then building out from that and like understanding what because we also know some of these positions are what they are right now. They're
Hmm.
not going to sign a marquee center back in this
Right.
window, right?
Right.
That's not going to happen. So we can feel fairly confident that Fernandez and Rosero are likely the starting center backs on day one, barring injury.
Hmm.
And if that's the case, okay, so you have Pulskamp, we know is going to be the starting goalkeeper. Rosero and Fernandez are the starting center backs. You have $1.5 million a year invested in the Mano Radia. Even if his salary goes down this year, maybe it does. That is your spine, right? It's Agata, Radia, Rosero Fernandez, Pulskamp. We know those right now. So like, where do you go from there? And I think that's really kind of helped me sort of clarify my thoughts as far as what the team should be. And I think you hit a really good point, is that this team is not set up to pass the ball around
No, it's
from a
weird.
talent perspective.
It's weird because they're not set up to be a passing team, but they're also like, you know this team needs dogs. They need dogs on the team, and because it's like Jake Davis, maybe Fernandez, and that's like it, right? And so it's
I'll
especially
be
when we're
interested to see what the intensity is like in camp this year. Like so many faces gone, new players sort of taking over. I think that there's going to be a shift in mentality a little bit. I
there
mean,
really
Vermees
needs
talked
to
about
be.
mentality.
That's
He
more
talked about
than
mentality all last year, and I think he was, sort of in a cliched way alluding to and probably not trying to call anybody out, but making it clear that like there was just too much complacency,
yeah.
both on the field and just in kind of how the team went about its play. And I think you're going to see a shift back to a little bit more industrious and sort of hard nosed playing. We said this over and over. This team, opponents used to hate coming to Children's Mercy Park. They used to hate it.
Yeah. I tell you
Not
what,
only
they hate playing against Jake Davis.
I know. Well, and it was not just that, but it was the combination of the fans
Yep.
and the team. It was a very Kansas City type of team, right? It was a very
Mhm.
sort of hard working, sort of blue collar sort of style. Like that was the feeling you got out of playing, and it was you knew you were in for a 90-minute fight every single time, and it wasn't just from the players on the field; it was from the fans in the stands at the same
Mhm.
time, and there was just sort of that symbiotic feeling between the two things, and we've kind of lost that a little bit. And I think that Vermes is going to be working on trying to reinstill some of that mindset for sure. But yeah, they do need some dogs, and I think that that's where they should look. But I mean, I've given you access to this sheet of available players in MLS. It's like if you look at the list of like central mid and D mid players on here,
It's
I don't see
uninspiring.
it's very uninspiring. I mean, if I knock out all of the ones over the age of 30, I mean, we've got Russell Knaus. I don't know. Drew Yearwood. Like none of these guys like
Yep.
scream
Well,
out
I
that
don't.
type of thing to me.
I mean, I don't think we're looking at MLS players. I mean, that would
Yeah,
surprise me.
yeah. I mean, Portland reportedly just signed a new D mid. You know, they re-signed Chara to another year on his contract, but they signed a Ecuadorian international D mid, and that might be the kind of, you know what I mean. That's the kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that's South American six.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would be okay with that
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Yep, me too.
Um,
And that's something that frankly they've never really prioritized or tried is developing that position. They've purchased players to play that position, and I think it's worth bringing in someone young who who's maybe more along the destroyer mode that you can maybe develop into a more complete number six.
I would agree with that. Um, so they've got some areas. I'm gonna throw one out here on you just because I know it's gonna piss you off, but I do think so. The word is that Eric Williamson's being shopped.
I mean,
I know you don't like him at all.
I just don't see it, man. Okay. I mean, all right.
I mean, I
He's
don't
not.
think he's not the dog you're looking for. I don't think by
No,
any means.
no. And he's not good enough. And he's not good enough in attack to make up for it. And so it's just like, no.
I mean, his per 90 numbers are pretty good on the
Hush.
attacking side.
I don't bring facts into this. You're not. You're
It's
not
a pretty
Mike
small
Coon.
sample size. He did
You're
not
not
play a
Mike
ton of
Coon.
minutes
I
last
don't want to hear it.
his per night. You need to look at his bar chart a little bit. His attacking numbers are actually pretty good. A lot of it is, I guess, the intel I've been able to gather is that he would sub in for Evander a lot. So he was actually playing as a 10 a lot for
Right.
Portland. And so, of course, they look
Portland,
good.
the team that had 3 double-digit scorers. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
well, one of them was Evander, but the
sure.
other the I think the other point is his bar chart is against midfielders, but he's playing as an attacking midfielder. So of course
Yeah.
his number, if you were to look at it compared to attacking midfielders, I don't think it's quite as good. But anyway, it was one that just popped up recently. He was on like 700 grand last year, and there's no way I'm down for that. So Portland's gonna have to cover a bunch of his salary for me to be even the least bit comfortable with that move.
Yeah.
But his are he and Kelly Hubley married, or are they just together anyway?
Don't know who that is. I'm not
Well, she's or Thorns center back, Portland Thorns.
I thought you were going to say something completely different.
I tried to say Portland and Thorns at the same time, and that came out exactly the wrong way. She's center back for the Thorns that is out of
Gotcha.
contract there,
Gotcha.
and would be looking for a new home too.
Okay,
And
package deal. Okay, I
yeah,
see.
that's what I'm saying. Is the current could use a veteran center back. So
There you go.
anyway, that is. I have no knowledge of anything like that. I was just thinking. I'm trying to think of like options that the club has that they need to add some depth in central midfield, and
Absolutely.
I think that they have been woefully poor at using mechanisms within the league to improve the team. And I think that there are some maybe this isn't the year because the talent's not there. I don't know, but I would like to see them be better at that. All right, let's move on to potpourri. Just like your favorite Jeopardy category, we'll discuss a few topics in and around the Sporting Kansas City MLS soccer sphere. Okay, did you see the pictures of the kit on a table? Grainy photo.
I vaguely remember it through my fever dream sickness, like literal fever dream. Yeah, I
It's
I
not the most
don't
flattering photo. I will put it
look,
that
man.
way.
We go through this every year, and every year we say the same thing. It really you got to see the kits on the players on the
Yeah.
field to really get a feel for them. I don't know. That's all I got, man. It sucks that and we say this like every year too. I think is it just sucks that that Adidas has the MLS contract and every team has to use like basically the same, you know.
The exact same
Yeah,
paneling, all that
yeah.
kind of
Hey,
stuff. They
that
all have to do the
sucks.
same thing.
That
I
sucks.
think it looks like the option this year was you could put a collar on it if you want to, because it looks like LAFC's kit has a collar on it. But like, yeah, there's not like the paneling, the look, everything, and
Yeah.
it's not just MLS, by the way. I posted this, so Jimmy Mack put a kind of a
Hmm.
thing about it, and I replied to it on Blue Sky and put a couple examples up. Every Adidas team, national team or club, has this design going on at least one of their kits.
Hmm.
And it's this weird sort of like vertical increasing size sash on the side that goes down into the shorts and goes around the back of the shorts. And I don't like it aesthetically. Like, I am not a fan of this look whatsoever. And every single team has it. And it started, like, I think I saw it in Nations League, the Nations League final, Mexico versus the United States, last year in like May or whatever it was, April, May. And Mexico had it. And I was like, what is this? And I remember I was texting with Chad Reynolds about it. I'm like, dude, what is going on with this? And he sort of alluded to the fact at the time, he's like, you better get used to it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what it's gonna be. And sure enough, we see the kit leaked, and it's like it's the same thing. And some teams have been better than others about sort of masking some of the panels and whatnot by keeping them all the same color or whatever. For whatever reason, it doesn't appear that MLS teams have been able to do that, but it is what it is, man. It's a kit.
You
If you
know
don't
what,
like it, don't buy it.
I, you know what I hate, and I actually kind of feel strongly about this, and I can tell that this is the direction that this kid is headed. Is that the the light colored kind of swoops that get bigger as they go towards the shorts will be continued onto the shorts, and I
They
hate
will
that.
be.
I
Yeah, that's
hate
what I'm
that.
saying.
Yeah, I hate that so much. Yuck.
Like, if you watch, like, so it was Arsenal Newcastle yesterday, and
Hmm.
Arsenal had
Yeah.
this on, and
Yep.
it's like that
Yep.
weird blue stripe goes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it
Okay.
goes.
I wasn't understanding. You said sash, and I was like, huh? Yeah. I hate that. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate
and
it. Hate it. Hate it.
and they've been doing it since, like I said, it started.
Hmm.
I saw the Mexico team pull it out for Nations League final
Yep.
last year, and Adidas and all of Euros, all the Adidas teams had it. Germany had it, and it was like the black to yellow to orange or red or whatever you want to call the third color of their flag. Like, all of that was, yeah, it.
Yuck.
And I'm not a fan. I don't like. Um, it's all sort of like it's based on stuff from 2006. You can find some old Wizards kits from '06
Hmm.
that have
Yeah.
similar stuff on them. Whatever. They're trying to
Whatever.
retro stuff, and it just I don't like
There's
it. I
only
didn't
so
like it
many
then. I don't
different
like it
ways
now.
that you can do it, so it's inevitable you're going to have to retro some things. But
Well, and this is where Sporting gets in a bad way, because they're limited by what Adidas will let them do with some of those
yeah.
panels from a coloring perspective. And then, as Chad, discussed a couple years ago on Shades of Blue, they had like a 7-year design brief of like how the kits are going to go over that time period. And it's obvious that Sporting is part of that design brief is the home kit is going to be horizontal stripes.
Yep.
Sporting blue and indigo. Like, that is going to be the home kit. They want to be like Celtic or something like that, where you recognize the kit every time you see it. And a horizontal stripe looks terrible with this paneling. It
Yeah.
just looks
That's true.
weird.
That's true.
Now it looks doubly weird because it's laid flat on a table and it's not on a human being. To your
Uh-huh.
point, the shirts look totally different on a human being, but also they look totally different on like a human being that plays soccer for a living. I don't know what these are going to look like on a non-soccer playing human being. I would suspect not ideal. So we'll have to keep an eye out for the other apparel around this drop, which I have been informed looks pretty cool. So I'm gonna wait for that. Typically I'm more of a track jacket guy anyway. So yeah,
We have similar taste in that. So
yes. Zip up hoodies and track jackets are kind of my MO when it comes to team gear. So hopefully those turn out pretty good. All right. Last thing on the potpourri side of things, the Current made some signings today, and since you've last been on the pod, they also traded for or signed Rocky Rodriguez or traded for her. I don't remember exactly how that transaction went. I'm sorry, it was a while ago. But they signed some kids. Well, two of them are kids. One of them is a fifth year senior. And one of them,
That's still a kid.
yeah. Um, and one of them has a very notable name and caused a little bit of a stir. That's Mary Long, the daughter of Chris and Angie Long, the primary owners of the club. So it caused a little bit of a stir when she was signed. So two of them are 17. They both played for the under 17 national team in the World Cup this year, where they got bronze. So that's Mary Long and Katie Scott. Um, and then and so like they are ostensibly U18 entry players. This new mechanism that the league came up with last year, which is how the current signed Alex Pfeiffer as well as Claire Hutton, players who are under the age of 18 at the time of signing, can be brought in via this mechanism, and so you can have up to 4 of them on the roster, and it was to sort of get more of a youth to pro player sort of pathway and create a mechanism for doing so. And to as part of the renegotiated CBA, they eliminated the draft. So this is kind of the way that teams go about doing it. They sign them straight out of college, and that is what happened with both of these players. I understand a little bit of the concern when it comes to Mary Long. I mean, she has been training with the Current for 2 years prior to going to Duke to play, as well as play with the U.S. U17s. She was a regular starter for that team. They won the bronze medal. I don't think that this is just a handing a spot to the boss's kid. I don't feel like that. I can understand why it feels that way. I can also understand why there need to be real concerns about firewalling her access, you know what I mean, a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
firewalling her parents' access to her, so that it doesn't feel like a problem inside the locker room, right? Where
Yeah.
certain things can or can't be said. Because locker rooms are where people complain about their contracts, they complain about their, situations. They
Mm-hmm.
like this shit sucks. Why is this way? Blah 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 blah. You have to be concerned at some level about saying those kind of things around the owner's kid,
Yeah.
right? Like, and you have to be concerned about potential retribution for it and all that stuff, even if Chris and Angie Long tell you over and over and over again, we'd never do any of those kinds of things, blah, 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 blah,
It
blah.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You have to be considerate of it. So I recognize where those concerns come from. That also doesn't mean that Mary Long can't play for the Current, right? Like, I think that there have to find some sort of balance here. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, this is a kind of a strange situation. It's even more strange than the coach's kid playing for the team, honestly, um, even if they're somewhat similar. But I think on merit, some people I saw on social media today sort of questioning on merit because Mary didn't play that much for Duke this season. She was, averaging about 30 minutes a game playing for Duke. First of all, in college, they sub so much, nobody plays that many minutes.
Amen. Yeah.
Um, Secondly, Mary Long is a 17-year-old college freshman playing for Duke. Um, the fact that she's playing half an hour a game at all shows how good she actually is.
Yeah.
And
She's
then
not doing that for you know, um, Missouri State
UMKC,
or
yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah. Missouri State's a bad example because they're a good school, but
they actually are a pretty good
good
soccer school. Yeah,
soccer school. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, she's not doing that for Rockhurst. She's
Yeah.
doing it for Duke, which is a very well known, high quality women's soccer team. So I think that and doing it at age 17, like she graduated a year
Hmm.
early so that she could go play for Duke. Like
Pretty good.
anyway, like I said, I understand where there's some concerns about the meritocracy level of it. I get that, but I think she's earned the right to play to be on an NWSL roster via this mechanism. The question is, can she earn the next contract, right? They're all 1 year deals. All these players are on 1 year deals, just like they would be if they got drafted. So they're
Hmm.
going to have to earn playing time, and we'll see if it works out or if it doesn't. But it's good to get another goalkeeper in the goalkeeping room. Gagne was like, what was her, she received some sort of defensive level award for the NCAA tournament, I believe. But was apparently like one of the best goalkeepers in college soccer last year.
She was
So
named the most outstanding defensive player um, for the tournament, and
yeah,
she was named to the all tournament team.
yeah.
She
So
got she kept clean sheets in 5 of 6 matches in this
that's
year's
pretty
event.
goddamn
Yeah,
good. And obviously UNC is well known for being a extremely good, um, soccer team. So, she will, I think, fill out that goalkeeper room, right? And yeah, I mean, as I noted, from their roster, from the Currents roster perspective, they're just sort of adding pieces at this point, right? They added
yeah.
Rocky Rodriguez, which I think was a good one in the midfield. I think that, they need another center back, as I noted, but I mean, I'm not too upset with the status of their roster. Obviously, they were very good last year. Assuming Bia can stay healthy, I think they, maybe they need that probably is the place they need to look, is like
Hmm.
having
Yep,
some
a
kind of
backup option. Yeah,
facsimile of Via. Obviously, it's not going to be her, but
yeah.
some version of that. A target forward of some kind, because I
Hmm.
think that it was clear when she was out and they didn't have that target that it really sort of limited their effectiveness offensively.
Having a target takes so much pressure off of a Chawinga and frees her up, puts her into space. It's a big deal.
Hey, I mean, it was on display for 90 minutes today at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Dominic Solanke occupying those. No, I
Yeah,
mean, even
he did a good job. His hold up play today was really good.
extremely good, and it's what released that goal,
Yeah.
the winning goal there at the end of that game. So I had to get just a little bit of a jab in there on Cody before we finish the podcast today. One thing to look for, I mean, they're going to camp on Sunday. I don't think they don't start in Coachella, right? They start somewhere else. Do they start in Florida? I don't even know.
I
I
have
didn't
no
look at it.
idea.
The the only part that we might actually be able to see would be the Coachella Invitational thing, and that isn't until I think February. So, yeah, I mean, enjoy those beep tests, guys. I mean,
Nothing
yeah,
more exciting than a beep test.
yeah. I mean, one thing to look for is any signing whatsoever.
Anything. Some crumbs.
Can just like I feel like the old guy in the Toyota commercial with the dollar bill at the end of the
Right.
fishing pole. Almost got it. That's kind of what I feel like, waiting for this team to make a signing of some kind.
Yep.
All right. As soon as that signing happens, I'm sure we'll have lots of internet nerd scouting that we'll have done on this player and told you all of our thoughts. And until that time, I am Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
Go Sporting.